first week of Phillies spring training games are almost in the books, and this is the Phillies Talk Podcast presented by Team Toyota. Corey Seidman along with Jim Salisbury, and as we sit down here on a Friday, we're coming off a Phillies spring training game against the Yankees. Man, 15-0, the Phillies won, but there were some interesting signs. Specifically, I want to start in the center field battle. Well, Odubel Herrera was not playing center field, but he's played a couple games in right field, and he's looked pretty good, especially Thursday. A home run, an opposite field single, made a very nice defensive play. Jim, when camp began, I think we both kind of saw Odubel Herrera as like a distant third or fourth in that competition. But now he seems like he might be playing himself into it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if you were just going to judge it from the beginning on pure talent, he might have been first on the list because he's such a talented guy. But, we didn't know what he was going to look like after nearly 2 years off. We didn't know if he was even going to be embraced by the clubhouse, if that was going to be an element that would, preclude him getting into this competition. He has spoken to the team twice. It appears that he's made strides on that end. And in terms of pure baseball, he started 2 games in right field because Bryce Harper's not playing defensively yet. But in those 2 games in right field, he's done nothing but solidify himself in the competition for a spot in that outfield. And we all know the only spot open is center field, where he was an all-star a few years ago. That was his position from 2015 to May of 2019. So he's put himself firmly in the competition for that center field job. And Joe Girardi says he will play center field soon. He has swung the bat very well. Like you said, made a very good defensive play on Thursday. And I am sure from purely baseball standpoint, team officials are very eager to see him start running down some balls in center field and see what he can offer to that team. Because if it's a pure baseball decision, he's right in it and appears to have a lot to offer. I think they'll have public relations issues to consider, which is a whole different ball game. But on just the baseball side, he's looked very good, as you said.
Jim, if Odubel were to make the team, who would be the odd man out in that center field mix, do you think? Because, it would be difficult for me to envision all 3 of Odubel Herrera, Adam Hazley, and Roman Quinn making the Phillies opening day roster, for example, just given guys that are going to be on the bench, like a Brad Miller plus a backup catcher. Matt Joyce seems to have an inside track there as well. And you don't necessarily want to fill your bench out with 2 center fielders at that point. So what's the situation like with guys with options remaining, and who might be the the easy casualty if Odubel were to make the team?
Yeah, well, about 4 weeks left in camp. Odubel, if he continues swinging it like this and playing with the energy he's playing and playing well defensively, he's going to put a lot of heat on people, and ultimately that might improve performance out there. Going to put heat on Quinn, going to put heat on Kingery, going to put heat on Hazley, and maybe that lifts their performances. We saw Kingery make a really nice swing yesterday on a changeup, hit a line drive laser beam out of the ballpark to left. We've seen Hazley come in and swing it pretty good. Roman Quinn is a guy who I think everybody is tired of waiting for, almost like Vince Velasquez, right? Very talented, but people are getting tired of waiting for him to deliver. His big strength is his speed. It's his wheels. He's a difference maker on the bases. He can't get on base because he doesn't have a good on-base percentage. He strikes out too much. To answer your question, Roman Quinn is out of options. He cannot be sent to the minors, obviously. I don't know if he gets pushed out. I don't know what the transaction is. Maybe they look to trade him. Maybe he plays great in spring training and wins the job. Who knows? But he's under heat. He's got to deliver. Kingery and Hazley both have minor league options, meaning they can be sent down. maybe the best thing is to, for Kingery's future is to send him down for a while and get him real consistent at bats as he's trying to make the change to this swing. But if he plays well this spring, I don't think that's going to happen, because I think his versatility becomes very, very attractive to the team, and his bat, if he swings it the way he can, becomes very attractive. Hazley has an option. Maybe he goes down. So I don't know who gets pushed out, but Kingery, Hazley have options, and Roman Quinn does not. That would require some thinking about where he fits into the future of the organization. So, it'll all sort itself out. But if Odubel continues to play well, he's really going to turn up the heat on those other three guys.
Well, someone else who's facing a little bit of pressure this spring is Vince Velasquez, who made his spring debut on Thursday. He piggybacked with lefty Matt Moore, who the Phillies added this past offseason. And then on Friday, we saw Spencer Howard and Chase Anderson. So a bunch of guys competing for those spots in the rotation. Velasquez looked good, on Thursday. But as you mentioned in your question to Joe Girardi Thursday, we've seen this like every year in spring training with Vince Velasquez. It's almost like a rite of spring that there's the Vince Velasquez excellent performance early in camp that has you wondering, have things clicked? Is this the year? What did you think of Vinny?
Yeah, we've actually seen it. We saw it twice last year. We saw it in Clearwater, and then the shutdown, and then spring training 2.0 at Citizens Bank Park. He was great. He came back throwing a cutter. He pitched, awesome, and he won a spot in the rotation for the 60-game season. But yeah, I mean, hey, look, the Yankees did not bring their A lineup. They had a couple of guys there. Voit was there, Urshela was there, but it's so early in spring training. Hitters really aren't ready, but you can look at the crispness of a pitch and say, pretty good or not so good. Matt Moore was very good in the start, and Vinny was very good in his 2 innings of work. So was Kinsler, who has something. Brandon Kinsler, pitched very well, and he's got to pitch well to make the team, and he's out of the gate with 2 real good ones. But focusing on Vinny, yes, we've seen this before. It's only practice. He's got tremendous talent. He tantalizes you with it in stretches, oftentimes in spring training. And then in the season, we just don't see it. We don't see it for consistent stretches. I thought he was dominant yesterday. That fastball, the four-seam fastball, he commanded it down in the zone. 2 scoreless innings, no hits, 3 strikeouts. He was dominant, but we've seen it before. To me, the big question on Vince is on the 2021 roster, opening day rosters, where does he fit in? They signed Matt Moore and they signed Chase Anderson to major league contracts, guaranteed. I just have to think they're going to get a shot as the 4th and 5th guy in rotation. Looking at Matt Moore yesterday, looked real good. They need a left-hander. Chase Anderson pitches on Friday. Where does Vinny fit in? As you've pointed out a number of times, Chase Anderson does not pitch deep into games. Maybe Vinny or maybe Spencer Howard is a piggyback option early in the season with Chase Anderson. I don't know. Maybe Vinny goes down late in the game and becomes a real weapon in the back end of the bullpen, especially if he throws the ball like he did yesterday. But we've been saying that for 3 years, and it just hasn't happened. He's had stretches down there. One night he looks great. The next night he's on Planet Vinny and can't get anybody out, can't throw strikes, working slow, looks unsure of himself. So I don't know what's going to happen. It feels like, Groundhog Day a little bit on Vinny. Is this year that it all clicks for him? I'm sure the Phillies hope so. You would love to see a talent like that really contribute. But I think, realistically this year there's another option in play, and that might be a trade. Somebody will take a chance on that arm. No question. There's cost certainty there. He's going to make $4 million. I think some other team could certainly afford to put him in the rotation at $4 million. And the Phillies, I think that, they're over $200 million in payroll. Getting out from under that $4 million, that might be nice flexibility to have in July at the trade deadline. The ability to maybe take on a piece that could really help you if you think you're a contending team. But maybe he stays and helps you become a contending team. I just don't know. What do you think?
Well, one thing the Phillies have never tried with Vince Velasquez is just putting him in the bullpen at the beginning of the season and leaving him there. He's going back and forth the way that like Brett Myers went back and forth from the rotation to the bullpen once upon a time. And everybody always talks about how Scott Kingery would benefit from playing one position. Nobody ever talks about how Vince Velasquez might benefit from just having a role in place firmly. When you look at like Vince Velasquez versus Chase Anderson versus Matt Moore, Velasquez sticks out as the guy who's best suited for relief work just based on his stuff out of those three guys.
Always has. I've talked to people very close to him that care about him, and they think it's his best role. And I understand what you're saying, give him a role and stick to it. And maybe the guy will play better. I hear that all the time, but at some point catching a baseball and catching a ground ball is catching a baseball and catching a ground ball. It's still baseball. You've been doing it all your life. At some point, pitching is still pitching. I don't care if he's waving you in the sixth inning or if you're starting the ball game. I mean, is it that much different? Yes, it's different, but is it that much different? It's still putting the ball in the box and trying to get the hitter out. I don't know why there's this it's this struggle for guys to get their head around their roles so much. But there is something to it, but I don't think there's as much to it as we make it out to be. At some point, it comes down to I got this great arm, and I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to get ahead, and I'm going to pitch ahead, and I'm going to get outs, and believe you can do it. So. I don't know where Vinny fits into the 2021 team. If it clicks for him. And I hope it does. I've said this many times. Vinny's a good guy. Vinny's a good-hearted guy, really good-hearted guy. I hope it clicks for him this year. And I hope he's a contributor to something special in Philadelphia. But the new front office, I also think, has to weigh what they might be able to get back for him in a trade to get a little payroll flexibility if that's something you want. But, you're also still – pitching depth is an issue here, right? Yeah, pitching depth is an issue. Once you get past Spencer Howard and Vinny as and Nova as 6, 7, and 8, you're getting pretty thin, and that's not a lot of depth. So there's a lot to weigh here. Vinny can make things really interesting by pitching well this spring, either in the teams that are looking at him as a possible trade acquisition, or the eyeballs that are looking at him in Clearwater with the Phillies as a possible contributor to the 2021 team. Joe, I asked Joe a little bit more about this yesterday, and Joe said Vinny doesn't care about his role. He just wants to help. He just wants to contribute and help the team win. So he seems like he's in a good frame of mind, and I really hope it clicks for him in some way, shape, or form this year, because he's a real good talent.
Hey, doubling back to Matt Moore, he did look pretty good in that 2-inning stint against the Yankees. Fastball, changeup, breaking ball, kind of spotting the ball all over the place. The Phillies have 6 years since they've had a lefty make more than a dozen starts. I believe it was Adam Morgan back in 2016. How much do you think they've missed that left-handed presence in the rotation over the last few years? We've talked about it, how they've lacked that lefty, but I mean, do you think that if Moore and Chase Anderson and Vince Velasquez perform similarly this spring, that Moore would have the advantage because of his handedness?
Well, I do think look, it comes down to if you're right or left. It's about who's the best pitcher and who's going to get outs. There's plenty of guys out there that can pitch well against righties and lefties, right? But I do think over the balance of the season, especially in the NL East, where you got Freddie Freeman, you got Michael Conforto, you got, who's that guy? Soto down in Washington. You have some left-hand. It's nice to change the look a little bit, right? Maybe even more important to have double-barrel left-handers in the bullpen probably. But I think when you're building a staff, it's nice to have some different looks. And, they have similar looks at the top, with 3 right-handers, all who like to pitch down the zone, sink in a little bit, change it up a little bit, throw a breaking ball a little bit. But, for the most part, Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin, their bread and butter is sinking the ball, sinking the fastball down in the zone. So you come at them with a left-hander. I think it's valuable to change the look, but that left-hander has to pitch good. You just don't throw a left-hander in your rotation for the sake of having a left-hander if you can't get people out. And Matt Moore, Enjoyed watching him pitch. I like watching him pitch. Always did from the center field angle. I like his mechanics. He's very smooth, the way he lets the ball go. I think it has the potential to be a pretty good signing.
Mickey Moniak has also hit the ball well here early in camp, kind of like a forgotten guy at this point almost. I mean, he played in the majors in 2020 unexpectedly because of the circumstances. And, there were some defensive issues. But, man, Mickey Moniak, what kind of role could he play for this team over the next couple of years? I mean, the clock is starting to tick. He's still pretty young, but he's been in the system now for, 5 years?
Yeah, he's been around. What kind of role? I see him going to AAA and continuing to get better. I think he needs that. I think he needs to go to AAA because there's still enough upside there that you don't want to be having him sit on your bench. And I don't see him beating out anybody on this team. I don't see him as being legitimately in this outfield competition, as being legitimately in the center field competition, unless they have some breakdowns, right? And in that case, he needs to play well and become a consideration in case they have breakdowns. But, I see him down in AAA, hit a couple of bombs yesterday, looked good, and that's a great thing because, you're not just down there trying to impress the people who run the team for April 1st or April 15th or April 30th for early in the season. You want to create a positive impression in case they need you on June 1st, right? So, and you want to go to AAA and continue the momentum you built in spring training. So if they have a need on June 1st, you're the guy. And if you come up and play well, then you kind of establish yourself and get more reps, more opportunity at the big league level. But I just think he needs to continue on becoming a better player, a more consistent player, a more experienced player. I thought he looked over his head in his brief time in the big leagues last year. Hopefully, there was no minor league season last year. I think he needs to go to AAA and play a full season, or at least whatever season they're going to have down there, and make it tough eventually on Phillies officials. Try to push his way into the scene by improving as a player, or maybe getting an opportunity elsewhere. But and I'm not underestimating what he's doing in Clearwater at the moment. I'm not saying it's not important, and I'm not saying he's not going to be important or could be important to the 2021 team. I just think right now I see him more as an outside candidate to make this team. If everything goes well for the team in their construction and health and performance of their projected 26-man roster, then he goes to AAA and continues his maturation as a player and is on call if you need him.
We got an update this week that the AAA season is going to be delayed. What happens with guys who are ticketed for AAA between the end of camp and when the AAA season does begin?
They are going to have another auxiliary camp like they had last year, where guys stay fresh and available if you need them. I'm not sure where that camp is going to be, if it's going to be up north where it's chilly in April. Last year it was in Lehigh. Maybe it'll be right back at Lehigh. Or I guess maybe you could do it in Clearwater. I think, though, the hurdle you'd run into there is, there's still a desire to keep everything socially distanced and kind of lighten the load in terms of personnel. And right when the big leaguers leave, you have, a whole load of minor leaguers coming in, guys that are going to be in A-ball and double-A are supposed to come in. So even though the big league team would be leaving, that facility in Clearwater will still be hopping with activity. So I don't know if they'll keep back their aux camp in Clearwater or send it to Lehigh Valley. But you got to, these guys are down there, they're getting ready. They're going to be primed, and they're going to be, they're going to have worked up a lather, and you need to keep them active. And they will. They'll find a way to keep them active, the guys that they don't bring to the big leagues immediately.
So we saw Rhys Hoskins make his spring debut on Thursday, and Bryce Harper got into a game as the designated hitter Friday. The only main position player we haven't seen so far is J.T. Realmuto. Am I right about that?
And Bryce on Friday be DH.
Right. Everybody else has gotten into games. Didi, Segura, McCutchen, all the other main guys have gotten into games. So it's just J.T., and we could have an update on his status soon.
Yeah, I would think maybe this weekend. I think he got casted 2 weeks ago today, 2 weeks ago Friday. And that's what they said. They would keep him immobilized for 2 weeks, take a picture of it, and then have a better idea when he can really resume full activities and maybe get a gauge on if he'll be ready for opening day. I still think there's a pretty good chance he's ready for opening day. I still think there's a chance they push him back 3 or 4 days just to be sure. We'll see. We'll know more in the coming days. He is doing a lot of drills, catching the ball with his left hand, taking some swings with his bottom hand, catching pop-ups, working with pitchers, catching bullpens. He's just not throwing and doing stuff with his right hand. But if they get a good vibe off that next X-ray and get a good feel that he's moving in the right direction, I think he has a chance to get back on the field and get the reps he needs. And if he needs an extra week, I don't think it's a big deal either.
And Rhys Hoskins feels like he'll be ready for opening day at this point, huh? I mean, that would be a big development for the Phillies. The guy had surgery, in October of last year. And it's not just getting Rhys Hoskins back in the lineup. It's also that, it improves your bench if you don't have to start Brad Miller at first base the first week of the season.
That's a great point. Your team becomes, what you envisioned your team, and guys are, in the roles that you want them in. And Brad Miller was signed to help on the bench, make an occasional start. Hoskins thinks he's going to be ready, barring something unforeseen. And the fact that, he's able to get in games during the first week of games, swing it pretty good. He hit one to the wall yesterday that I think got knocked down by the wind, made a really nice swing on an RBI base hit the other way. I really think there's a pretty good chance he'll be ready.
Well, that's going to do it for this Phillies Talk podcast. The Phillies have a couple more games this weekend, and then they have one of 2 spring training off days next Monday. And as a reminder, we will have 3 of the Phillies games next week televised on NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus. He's Jim Salisbury. I'm Corey Seidman. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next Tuesday.